115. That's as fast as they come. That's as fast as we've had them.
First impressions on yours?
Nice!
Absolutely awesome. It's so powerful, and that's with the GoPro.
G'day, Stu from UAV Futures here, and today, well, I'm super excited. We got Granger in the studio. Granger is our resident racer. He really keeps up with the trends and pushing his quad to the limit. You're always up at Eastside every single weekend, ripping laps, placing on the podium. Today, what we're going to be checking out is the UAV Futures. I'm pretty excited. 2019 race version. So Granger and myself, we've put together two entirely different but very similar in some ways race builds where you can take them to a race meeting at 2019, and if you've got the skills to pay the bills, you can absolutely perform, place on the podium. It is absolutely ridiculous just how fast these things go. But I also want to say, if you've built some of our builds in the past, like some of our builds have had over 1 million views, like the UAV Futures $99 build, that's not what this is. This is a little bit more premium. We're using some premium parts. Mine's about the $200 mark. Yours is about the $250 mark. And if you've never built before, this video is really going to help a lot of people out, because I know a lot of people want to get into racing. It looks really fun. Let me tell you, it is. We're also above Granger's head, there should be a bit of a playlist. We're going to go through like the binding, making a model, reversing your props, updating to the latest beta flight, hooking up smart audio, all that sort of stuff. So if you've never done it before and you're thinking, gee, I'd love to do it, I don't know how it's going to work, this is the video series for you. We're going to get you racing. We're going to put you on the field with some seriously kitted kit, and you're going to have an absolute blast with some performance parts. So Granger, what can you tell us about your build? Because it is a little bit different to mine.
Well, definitely, firstly, you're going to be punching a hole through the roof because we're running 22/8 1800 kV on 6S, and
they're the Zing motors.
They're the Zing motors, and they look absolutely amazing.
Yes.
And we've also got a bulletproof Titan stack in the middle, and one key thing about racing is to have a reliable ESC because you are going to be pushing it hard. The lollipop antenna, that's really good for racing because...
And that's very different to what mine got. And yours is also a stretched X frame as well. So why did you choose stretched X as well?
I chose stretched X because, in my opinion, it seems to be just a bit more stable in the air for me, and also it can corner and do split S's a bit more tighter and better for me.
Yep, and we're going to link all these parts below too. And one great thing, you can mix and match. So if you like Granger's antenna and you want to change it out for the ones of mine, you can do that. You prefer Granger's motors, but you want to put them on this frame. Or if you want to change the cameras up, everything between these two, that's the beauty of these builds. You can mix and match, and they all kind of work together to make something really, really special. My build, a bit of an overview. It is a bit of a lower stator motor, so it's only a 2205. Both of these are 6S, because that's the current trend when it comes to racing for 2019. That's what we're going after. It's just made for you racers who want to build something special, but it is also a lot lighter. So mine is coming in, it's only like the 230 gram mark, so significantly lighter. I think yours is like the 280, maybe the 290 mark, something. So definitely you're going to get two very different, but still extremely fast flight experiences. Yours might be a bit smoother. This might be a bit more jerky, but quicker in the turn. It's going to be pretty much, we've made two builds, so you can decide what's going to work for you, what do you like to fly more. And also a bit of a surprise as well, as much as it's going to break our hearts, these are going out to you guys. So we're going to be running a bit of giveaway, so check the official rules down below. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, all that usual stuff. But in the rules, there's going to be something where I want you to start a discussion. So put your comments down below. What do you like about this build? What do you think it means for racing in 2019? My battery's going off, all that sort of stuff down below. And the other part we're going to give away is to someone who replies to a comment. So someone who has a meaningful reply, starts a bit of a conversation to someone else's comment on there. So it's all about engaging with the community, starting those discussions, talking about racing. But what we're going to do now, let's kick it off. We've seen how they fly, we've spoken about what's in them. It's time to get our hands dirty, show you what tools we're going to need, put them together, and show you just how easy it is to build a UAV Futures 2019 race track monster that you can take to the field. And if you've got the skills to pay the bills, you can definitely place on the podium. So let's do it. Get started, get on with that build. You're about to disappear out of here because you're not here through this entire build. No. But we'll see you at the end. We're out having fun with your mates, ripping around, and these things are absolutely screaming. So let's do it in 3, 2, 1. Boop. So Granger's disappeared. Let's have a quick overview of the tools we need. It's super easy, really simple. You don't need too much stuff whatsoever. And if you've never built a quad before, let me tell you, it is super easy, and we're going to take you through every single step of the way. And these are things you're going to need to do it. So the first things first, you are going to need to do a little bit of soldering, not nearly as bad as it used to be. Back in the day, we had to do a lot of soldering, but now everything seems to be 4-in-1s. It is much simpler. So I've just got some 60/40 solder right here. I'm going to be using the TS100. I'll link that down below. There's also a little soldering guide which you should definitely go check out if you've never done that before. I made that just for you guys. You are going to need a few different like little hex drivers, Allen keys, depending what you call them and where you live. So I've got a 1.5, a 2mm, and a 2.5mm driver. Look, sometimes you get the little ones that come with the motors. These, they just make life so much easier. So you might have those little L shapes around, but I prefer the driver style. I might also need a Phillips head screwdriver. So we'll put that to the side. The next part, you are going to need some zip ties. They just make things nice and easy. Two little things that are going to come in handy. You're going to need a pair of pliers, and you're also going to need some little wire snippers. So they make your job very easy. We use them probably the most out of everything here. And then here's some little optional extras that I can really recommend. Number one, this what looks like chewing gum is actually blue tack. Now, if you can get the blue stuff, the real stuff, that's even better. This is the one I found in the house that I've been using, but that's really easy to push your wires down and stick stuff to it if you're going to be doing some soldering. You're also going to be needing some heat shrink of different sizes. I'll link this down below as well. I'll link everything down below that you need, even things like the tools and the snips and all that sort of stuff. But this we can put over our wire, heat it up with a little heat gun or a lighter, even a hair dryer I used to use. And yeah, that all shrinks down nice and tight over some of our wires and our joins. And then this part I really recommend is getting one of these little packs. I think they're like $4 or something, but it comes with different standoff sizes and some little nylon nuts as well if I can get one of these out. And these little nuts and standoffs, they just make your builds so much cleaner. If you're missing a screw or missing a nylon nut, or you want to change it up, you want to have a different size, you need a bit more space, whatever the case is, these are extremely useful, and you're going to be using them in a lot of your builds in the future. So definitely think about picking these up, throwing them in with your order, especially because they're just a couple of bucks. But anyway, that's it. Let's get stuck in and show you just how easy it is to make some of these absolute race monsters. Right, so with those things out of the way, let's jump in, do the fun stuff, get started with our build, and you guys are going to be surprised just how easy this is. We're going to look at my, I guess, light build first, and we'll jump over, look at Granger's power build in a second. Let's go through some of the components. So the centerpiece of mine, it's all about keeping it light. We've got the iFlight Dove right there in the middle, and it kind of looks crazy, I guess, just how few components there are nowadays. Everything is pretty much almost plug and play, super easy stuff. So we're going to be putting in our iFlight complete stack, the V2 right there. I'll link all this down below as well. There'll be some other components, so if you find something else you want to use, a lot of this stuff is mix and match. You can do a combination. I'll put a whole bunch of compatible parts down below as well. On the front end of our so this has got everything. This has got our ESCs in here. This has got our F4 flight controller, our OSD. It's also got our VTX. It's all got smart audio. At the front on mine, we've got the Foxy Arrow, which is a pretty tried and true FPV camera. It works very, very well. And then I couldn't pass this up, these beautiful R6 from Brother Hobby. These motors, they look gorgeous, and I guess you could go a little bit cheaper. This is probably where I spent a little bit of my money in my build. You definitely could knock it down a few dollars or two, but I couldn't resist. And the big part too being 6S, super light. This thing should be an absolute weapon. And I've also got some ultralight props on mine that I'm going to be using as well. So these T-Motor props right there, they should be turning this little thing into an absolute little beast. The Dove could be a little bit of a deceptive name. Now let's jump over, have a look at Granger's performance build and see what he's putting in his, because he has done things a little bit differently. So I'll put those to the side. So now moving on, looking at Granger's build, I've got the Dove. What Granger's got, he has the Vampire. It's a little bit bigger. It's more of a stretched X format. Very, very cool Dead Cat style. It's going to be made for really some extreme performance on the outside. Let's start at the most beautiful thing. We're going to be using these Zing motors, 2208s. I mean, that is absolutely ridiculous. And then in the middle, we are keeping with some serious performance. We've got a HG LRC 6S Titan stack. So that ESC there is ridiculous with our F4 flight controller on top. And then we're just taking things up a notch. So if my build is around the $200 level, Granger, well, he went a little bit special. His has a few little nice, I guess, extra performance parts. and he's got things like built-in DVR that he can also record on his AKK VTX, and we've got a lollipop antenna so we don't just have a dipole, and he is rocking some Gemfan Hurricanes and a Micro Swift 3 at the front of his, which is a gorgeous camera, and I really like the lens on that. So these two builds, they do have different prices. So we've got the cheaper build for mine, about 200, and then we've got Granger's just extreme performance power grunt build right here, which we'll be doing as well. So let's do it. Let's kick it off. The first things first, let's put all these components to the side. We're going to be talking through how these frames go together, and I'm going to skip all the boring stuff, the stuff I'm sure you can do yourself, and we're just going to have a look at the parts I think that I would like to learn if I was doing my first build as well. So first things first, these builds, they do come with instructions, which is pretty straightforward to put together, but there are two little caveats that I do want to point out when you're building them, because I'm going to be doing some things a little bit differently. Because we have the iFlight, we're going to be working on the light build first, and then we'll jump over, look at Granger's Vampire. I'm just going to take it apart because I've already built mine up to show you guys sort of what it looks like. But the way this is going to mount right here, we actually need to kind of take it apart, and before we put our arms inside like it says on the instructions, it's very straightforward, and they kind of just get sandwiched in the middle right there. We kind of need to slide in two little bolts first. So let's take this all apart. Unfortunately, this is going to take me a little bit of time, so let's cut back with the magic of editing in 3, 2, 1. Rightio, so when you get it out of the pack, here's what it's going to look like. I guess that's going to look much more familiar. What we do need to do, first things first, is we're going to be installing our little complete combo stack in the middle. Now we need to get that under the base plate, and that's this bit right here. So before we go any further, essentially what we're going to need to do, we're going to need to take off these screws right here, slide them through from the bottom, and then that's going to secure our little stack to our plate. So I'm going to take one of these out. You're going to need a little 1.5 mil screw like this, and I really suggest doing this one at a time, because otherwise it would be a nightmare trying to fix all this stuff up and juggle it with as many hands and all that sort of stuff. So let's unscrew this. Alrighty, so you can see I've got one screw out, making sure you get this around the right way. So what we do want to have, we've got our antenna and our battery pads at the back right here. This is the back on the Dove frame, and when you've got one of these screws off, slide it up underneath in that little 20 by 20 mounting hole right there, and then you should be able to screw it back in. So we're going to need to do that. I'm going to do this one first. And when it gets all the way through, you can just, hopefully this is in shot anyway, you can just put the little end on. It doesn't have to be down secure or tight at all just yet, but it's just going to make it a bit easier. So there we go, that's the first bit. What I need to do now, I need to do this same thing that I've done here on all four, and once all four are in, I'm going to tighten it down and show you guys what it looks like. So that bit, let's cut to that now in 3, 2, 1. Rightio, so that's all done, nice and secure, just making sure that our battery lead is going to be facing towards the back. If you flip it over, you can see you shouldn't have any jello or anything like that. Nice little clean build. That's why I really like this stack. It makes it super easy. Now what we're going to need to do is we're going to build the frame as per instructions, really standard stuff. You just put your arms in, you sandwich in between that and the base, or the bottom plate I should say, then Bob's your uncle, you're done with the frame. But we're not going to be screwing in the standoffs just yet, because that, look, they just get in the way. We'll put them in right towards the end of our build. So let's cut back to what that looks like, and then we'll move over and talk about Granger's Vampire frame. Rightio, so there it is. Now that's all done, let's move over, have a look at Granger's build, put this to the side. Already it's getting a little bit messy here on the bench, but the Vampire frame, it's a little bit more straightforward. But what we do need to do, we're going to take the top plate off so you can see. Right here on this one, build it as per instructions, except there's two things I'd like you to do on this one. Number one, the standoff screws that come with this, you're going to get some, I think they're M16s and M14s. Put the longer ones on the outside of the arms, because on our build, and then that's going to attach to your standoffs, because on our build, what we're going to be using to secure those middle arms, the Titan stack that we've chosen for this build, that actually comes with these four much longer screws here. They're going to go right through the entire build. That's where we're going to mount our whole stack to. Rightio, so now we've got the arms all secured there. They're screwed right in. We've put the Titan screws through the middle to hold the arms in place instead of the original screws. What we need to do is, on your Titan stack, you're going to notice that it comes with these four larger holes right here, and that means we can actually soft mount it. So you're going to get these little, I guess, rubber grommets. What you need to do, slide those into the holes. You're going to need to do this for the ESC and also for the flight controller. Alrighty, so that's all done, and we've got our 4 little grommets in both our ESC and also in our flight controller. What we need to do now, this is where I'm going to recommend you go and get some of these little plastic nylon screws that I spoke about at the very start, one of those little extras. We're going to screw those all the way down, so there's one on each, I guess, each screw. That's going to offer a bit of a buffer, so there's no shorts on here. So we'll screw this down. The Titan Stack actually does come with some of its own little, I guess, extra nylon pieces, but I find these ones, it's just going to make it a little bit more compact, look a little bit nicer. Okay, so I've got my first 4 little nylon screws on there. Then all we need to do is push on our ESC, making sure that our XT60 lead and the battery connector is facing towards the rear of the craft. So we can do that. And then what we need to do, put down another screw. Right, freeze frame there, it's Stuart and Granger from the future. If you're following along this build at home, what did I do, Granger?
You flip the ESC up.
Yeah, I put the ESC in upside down, so I don't want anybody to do that. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go in here, take it off. The rest of the build is exactly the same, but if you see this way up for the build, well, you need to sort of flip it. So this part is on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead, desolder all this sort of stuff, flip it around, but then for the remainder of the build, you're going to see it the wrong way up, basically. But I'm going to show you the right way now. Rightio, so there it is. I put the ESC in the correct way. So when you're watching this round, make sure this is the correct way that should be. But what we should do now, let's cut back to the video. You can see me put it in upside down, but other than that, the steps are going to be exactly the same, and let's get on with our build. So thanks very much for your help in this bit, Granger.
No worries. I'm glad to give you moral support.
And then what we need to do, put on another little nylon, I guess, bolt, nut. Once that's done, then we need to slide the next one on, making sure that our flight controller's little arrow is facing towards the front, so we do that. And this is what I love about these stacks. It's really, really easy to connect your ESC up to your flight controller. You can just plug that in with the little cable that's provided. No soldering on that part. And then the final little touch, what we need to do, let's put on our little nylon extra stand pieces here so they're poking up a little bit. That's going to give us enough room to put our VTX on the top and slide our receiver in the middle. So let's go ahead and do that. Alrighty, with that all said and done, we've got our stack secured to both our light build and our performance build. Next step, we need to attach our motors. Now these ones, they only have 3 mounting holes each. It's really, really straightforward. Take some of the screws that come with your motors, put them on here, making sure your wires are running down towards the middle of the stack, down along the arm. Do that with the Zings on the performance build if you're following along at home, and we're going to be putting the R6s on the light build right here. So you guys, I'm sure you can figure out how to do that. So let's just cut to when that's done, and then we can get soldering this bad boy up. So let's do that thanks to editing in 3, 2, 1. Alrighty, there it is. You can see I put the motors on there. Really, really straightforward stuff. Now the fun bit, we're going to do a bit of soldering. And don't worry, if you've never soldered before, a little card should pop up there. It is super easy, a little tutorial. Go watch that. I made that video just to help you guys out. If you've never soldered before, fear not. It is really, really easy. I guarantee anybody can do it. A 10-year-old could do it. And, you know, you're going to end up, if you follow that tutorial with a little bit of practice, some beautiful, nice, stronger solder joints than you would get if you just use plugs or anything like that. So what we're going to do, we're going to go right now, we're going to pre-tin our board. So we've got our light build and we've got our power build right here. You can see they're taking shape, looking absolutely gorgeous if I don't say so myself. You can see the different shapes and as well as the different weights and sizes. Very, very nice. But what we do need to do, let's go around, we're going to do a bit of soldering. I'm using the TS100 and you guys can follow along at home. The reason I like this one is because, well, you can power it off your LiPo. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to be powering it off my XT60, but any soldering iron will do. One thing I do wish though, I've really got to buy a better cord because this one, it's not, they've got like some nice flexi ones out there or something for like $8 and I don't know, I'm probably going to buy one after I finish doing this video, but let's go around and do a little bit of pre-tinning and hopefully you guys can see this in the roof cam. Do it, let's get started. So, and we're essentially going to do all the tinning, then we're going to go through tin all our wires and then we're going to join them all up together. So let's go through tin all these pads. Now soldering is all about getting in and out, putting the heat in just for the places that it's needed. So let's do that, go across all these pads. There's one row for our light build. Let's do the back battery pads. Now this one might be a little bit harder to see because that little pigtails there is in the way, but very, very much the same thing. My soldering iron is set to about 400 degrees. And then we just need to do the other side as well. Alrighty, so believe it or not, that's our pre-tinning on the light build. Let's do the same on the power build. Now this one, it's a little bit different because there's some extra pads that we need to look after as well. So things so we can get our smart audio working. So because this one we're going to wire up our receiver directly, where this one, the light build, it's got a little plug. So let's get on with that. I'm going to start at these back pads right here. Exactly the same process. Then there's some other little bits we need to do on the Titan one. So you can see I'm going to be using S-Bus. So this is all going to be covered in our receiver setup guide. So the little card should pop up here if it's done, or it should be linked down below, or in a part 2 video or something like that, because setting up your receiver can be different depending on what you're using. It's a big fly in here, but if you're using S-Bus, that's what I really like about this Titan board. It's very, very easily labeled. You can see exactly what's going on. So it's going to be using a 5-volt, our ground, and S-Bus. And then when it comes to our camera, we're going to be using 5-volt, ground, and cam. All the same, very similar for our VTX. You can see that's what makes this board so easy. We've got our VTX, our ground, and our battery. And then we just need to connect up our smart audio here. So I'm going to connect up TX3 and RX6 depending on how you want to set up, but we'll cover that too when we get a little bit further along. But that's it for the pre-tinning as far as the boards are concerned. Now what we need to do, we're going to be trimming these wires and putting them together, and trust me, after that it is going to look beautiful. So we're going to do one motor together, and then we're going to repeat the process on the other 4 motors. And if you need some orientation or anything like that, I'm going to put a little graphic on the screen that should really help for motors 1, 2, 3, and 4, but essentially it is very, very straightforward and easy stuff. So I'm going to get my trusty clippers right here, and I'm going to measure along my wires, giving myself a little bit of slack. So let's see if that's running along there. I'm going to say we're going to be about that length. I'm going to cut it like that. I'm going to strip the ends. Now you can use wire cutters, or if you've done it enough you can do it like that. Add a little bit of solder to the end, and then simply get this in shot, wire it up. It's looking good. Let's do the same for the next wire that comes off that motor. Alrighty, so there it is. There is one motor all soldered up. What we're going to do now, I'm going to go through, repeat the process for motors 2, 3, and 4 on the light build. Also do the same on the power build right there, and then we'll cut back, and then we'll add in our XT30, a cap for some nice clean video, and move on with the build. So let's do that with the magic of editing in 3, 2, 1. radio, so you can see it is looking much more like a quadcopter. We've got our motors on there, looking sharp, all soldered up, connected, nice and shiny. That thing is not going anywhere. We're going to tape these down a little bit too, so the motor wires aren't quite so loose. They'll get protected from the props. But now our next step, we need to make up some battery leads and also add in a capacitor. Now don't worry, this is super easy. All we're going to do, it's very much like the process we did before. We're going to simply strip the end of the wires that we've got right here. You can also buy these pre-made, so I'll link them down below if you do want to get them pre-made, but let me tell you, it is super easy. The motor wires are far harder than this, so we're going to pre-tin those up, and we're also going to pre-tin our XT60. So let's get ahead, let's get into it, start doing this. Right, nice fresh bit of solder. Alright, and we'll also do the XT60 connector. Just like that. Now we're going to add in this part. So that's one beautiful connection, if I don't say so myself. Will be two. Okie dokie, and now what we need to do, we're going to get a bit of heat shrink and slide it on over the top of that. Be about ½ an inch. Don't need very much at all. Wait till these cool down before you slide it on there, otherwise you might get in a situation where you try to slide your heat shrink on and it shrinks before you get it over the XT60. 1, 2. We've made our XT60, we've got some heat shrink on there. Now what we need to do, we're going to hook it up using the exact same process we connected the wires. We're going to use that to these battery pads at the back right here. So we strip the ends. Let's tin them up. And don't be afraid to use a bit more solder too when it comes to these larger wires. Alrighty, and now we're going to hook them up right here. Very, very simple stuff. Same sort of process, putting them on the top and then soldering them down. You can also use some pliers if they're getting really hot as well. Okie dokie, so that's done. It's all looking nice and soldered up. What we're going to do, I ended up using some pliers because it was getting a little bit too hot. We're also going to add in a cap, and this is going to help clear up any video noise, especially with these powerful motors. It's never a bad idea to have some caps on here because nowadays these drones, they suck down so many amps and sometimes it can affect your video. So we're going to be putting a little cap on, exactly the same thing. So we're just going to solder that on right here. And we'll do the same for the ground. Alrighty, so now we've also got a cap on our build. So now we've done that, we've added a cap and our battery lead. You can see right there, let's do the exact same thing on the light build and then cut back to what it looks like with the magic of editing, continue, and believe it or not, we're getting really close to the end of our build. So let's do that, see what that looks like in 3, 2, 1. Rightio, so that's looking good. We've got our light build and our power build right here. The caps are on. Make sure the little stripe is on the negative side when you're hooking up the caps, otherwise you're gonna have a small mini explosion. And then what we need to do, it's time to hook up our VTXs and our cams. We're gonna do that over on this side first, and then essentially that's kind of it. So we're going to work on the light build for a little bit, then we're going to jump over to Granger's power build right here because the processors are a little bit different. We'll be setting up smart audio. Smart audio will be on both of them, but we'll make sure we'll have to wire it in directly on this one on the light build. It's already pre-done, so that's one less solder joint. So let's do that now, starting with our cam. Now what I really like about this light build is just how easy this stack makes it, this iFlight stack. So at the front, all we're going to do is connect. There's a little plug. It's on the front right there. If you've been following along at home, it makes it very, very easy when we're hooking up our camera. And then on the back, it's pretty much the same thing. What we've got, this is going to be for our receiver. We can simply plug this in. It goes on the same board to the flight controller. At the back right here, this is going to be so we can hook up our receiver. That's it. So this is going to be for our receiver a little bit later, and that'll be in the setup guide, and depending on, that should be the same for most people. But right here, what we need to do, we can either D-pin this and connect it to our camera directly, but I think that's going to be a bit of a pain because these wires are a little bit too long, so we're going to cut those, join the wires actually, so 2 wires together on each one, and then let's say, we're not really going to need too much room, but it's always better to have too much than too little. I'm not going to be using the blue wire on this one whatsoever. We're really just interested in yellow to yellow, red to red, black to black. So I'm going to actually take this one out. You can either cut it out if you don't want it, or you can slip a little knife under there and get it out if you need to do it that way, or use your fingernails. Now connecting wires, it's super easy. It's also in that tutorial, but we're going to do it right here. Simply strip the ends. That one's a little bit long. I'm going to trim that back just a tad. Do that on the other cable as well. 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to tin these up. So that's where a little bit of blue tack makes this quite handy actually. Soldering iron. Tin these up. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, and we could hook these up, but we want to make sure there's some heat shrink on there, so let's get a little bit of heat shrink. Slide these onto the wires. Then let's connect red to red, yellow to yellow, and black to black. Slide our heat shrink up. And then once we heat that up, that will be done. That's it. We could connect our FPV camera, and believe it or not, for the build, that's kind of it. Like, it's already got the antenna in there, everything right here. It might not look it just yet, but trust me, that is 95% of the way there to have a fully functioning build. Alrighty, so now it's time to move on to our power build right here. And what we're going to do, we've already soldered up and pre-tinned most of the pads we need to work on. We're going to jump over, have a look at our VTX, which can also record our DVR as we're going around. So where to put my blue tack? There it is. Push this down here. And what we need to do, we need to remove these wires that you can see. So all we really need on this side is our smart audio and our video, power and ground. These two in the middle, we don't actually need that. So let's take those two off. So very quickly, in and out, put a little bit of fresh solder on the soldering iron. 1, 2. Now what you can do here, let me get this cord out of the way. I really need a new cord. Guys, if you're going to get this soldering iron, get it with a new cord. You can either keep the wires for the length they are or trim them down. So I'm going to trim mine down just a little bit. You don't have to if you don't feel comfortable doing that. Definitely, they're going to work fine the way they are. I'm just trying to keep it a little bit neater. So snipping these, stripping the ends. And we're going to hit all those with a little bit of solder. Alrighty, now what we're going to do, so we've already soldered all this up. You can see on the right here, this is where we're going to be hooking up our receiver. So we don't need to do anything in this part just here. Towards the front, this is where we do need to hook up our smart audio. And then down here, this is where we're going to be powering our VTX. So let's hook these up now. We've got our ground. Our voltage. And put our VTX, which is the yellow wire. And then we're just going to hook up our smart audio, our TBS one, to this TX3, like so. And then essentially we'll be able to just plug this on the top, like that. Bob's your uncle, our VTX is ready to go. But we're not going to screw it down just yet because we also need to hook up our camera. So what we've got here, our little Runcam Swift 3, we're going to do something a little bit similar, but we're just going to direct solder straight to the board, not like in the light build. And with this one, all I don't need these outer two wires either, so I'm going to take them out. And then this one's pretty straightforward as well. We've just got our cam at the front, our ground. This board's really nicely labelled as well, so you shouldn't get too confused, and our 5 volt. And then I can actually turn this off because we don't need this anymore. I can get rid of this cord, which is, take this off. I like the battery. That's what I think of that cord. So there we go, and then we can simply connect this up like this. Alrighty, so that's done. I'm going to tidy up a little bit, then we'll cut back because then we get to do my favourite part, which is putting it all together. We've done the hard yards, we've done the soldering, we've trimmed everything. There's mess everywhere. Now it's when it all comes together. So get set to turn all this mess right here into a beautiful looking FPV racing drone. So let's clean up and cut back in 3, 2, 1. Here we go. They are looking fresh to death. And now what we need to do, we're going to put them together. So it's pretty simple stuff. We're going to put on our VTX right here, and then we're going to tighten it down with some of those little nylon, I guess, nuts that we linked before. We're going to attach our little Lollipop FPV antenna. Now look, this is a little extra, but it's going to give you some better reception than the dipole that I've got on my light build. So because that's an MMCX, all that simply does is plug straight in like that. Then on, what do I have to do on this one? It's pretty much built. That's what I love about the light build. It is so easy. If you don't like soldering, this one, it's going to be your best friend. Now probably a pretty interesting part, we need to connect our standoffs. So now the standoffs are in this one. Let's put the standoffs in here. Then I'm just going to put in those front little brace plates. It's going to be much easier to show you sort of what it looks like. So let's cut to what that looks like in 3, 2, 1. Save you guys some time with editing. Alrighty, so there it is. Thank you very much, editing, and you can see once these things have come together, they are an absolute work of art. Some of the little details we added, so you can see I put the standoffs in, put the top plate on, I put a little bit of electrical tape on the arms just to keep those wires nice and tidy, little zip tie at the back. Of course, we've got a little receiver cable out the back. These don't have a receiver in them just yet because I'm going to do a full video just for on setting up your receivers, all that sort of stuff. And other than that, it is looking super sharp. We just need to put our props on. On this one, you can see I put the top plate on. We also put some electrical tape on here, and I also zip tied our little capacitor down right here along with our antenna. And I really like this because these antennas, they hold up very well, but when they're in the top like this and they're zip tied down, if anything does break in a really violent crash, this little bit right here, that zip tie is going to break. That's very easy to replace. Much cheaper than replacing the VTX if you snap off the MMC connector or anything like that. And then you can see the only other little bit, I put the wires down through the bottom, coming out the bottom of the frame. Overall, I am super happy with how they turned out. And now what we need to do, let's put the props on. So on the power version, we're going to be running props out, and that's with these Hurricane, Gemfan Hurricane props. And on the light version, what we've got on the light spec, I'm also going to be running, which way it goes on this one. We're going to be putting these on, running out reverse wires, and I'll do a full video on your prop setup and is it going to be running reverse, or that'll all be covered in the setup video as well, because that's a very easy setting. But for racing, I think it is a little bit better if you're going to be running them props out or props reversed, as we like to call it. So let's put those props on, finish the build, and give yourself a pat on the back. Rightio, so welcome back, Ranger. We put our builds together, you disappeared, left me to do all the hard work. How do you think it turned out?
I think it turned out quite well. I'm very keen to see how it flows, and
I was impressed how easy that ESC was to solder up, actually. So yeah, good job on that one. I'm super excited to go fly mine, so definitely hope you guys enjoyed that build and followed along. If you're playing at home, remember all the links are linked down below. You can mix and match. I'm going to put a whole bunch of different types as well, so if we're going to have some different frames, a whole bunch of different components, but now there's pretty much just one thing left left to do, which is go and fly them. Also, too, definitely if you want to enter the giveaway to win one of these, check the official rules and all that sort of stuff. That's going to be in the description down below, so we can send one of these, or you know, both of these out to you guys, and also a complete playlist on how to bind, how to set up your models, how to change, reverse your props, update to Betaflight 4.0, put smart audio on, everything you need to make sure this is race ready for 2019. If you're new to the hobby, you can go out and absolutely kill it on the race course. So anyway, that's enough from us. Subscribe for more FPV related content. We're about to go out and have some fun, because that's the only thing left to do with these beautiful builds. You ready to do it? Rightio, so I guess that's it. We're gonna go fly, and you can enjoy the footage in 3, 2, 1, bam! I'm telling you, this is the best quad I have ever built.
That's as fast as they come. That's as fast as we've had them pretty much here, guys. Oh, 111!
Off the chain, insane. All right.
That's about it.